Welcome back. In this episode I'm going to be talking about tape tension. As I stated in the repair video of how to tune up your 8-track tape, sometimes there will be tension problems with these. Oftentimes what will happen is the tape pack will either get too hard after if the tape has been sitting in storage for a very long time and exposed to temperature extremes, I should say. And usually that will be corrected while you're doing the tune-up and your hand advancing the tape. It will eventually loosen back up again, and then the tension will go back to what it should be. Sometimes what happens though is that even after you have done the hand advance, one complete play, you will end up noticing a gap. There will end up being a gap in between the plastic part of the inner reel and the play tape itself. Sometimes the gap will be small, and sometimes the gap will be rather large, and the play tape itself will be out of round on the reel. Obviously, when this happens, the tape pack is too loose, and you will need to tighten it up. Typically, if you can get away with doing it this way, what I like to do is, before I'm going to adjust the tension, I will either, if the tape is, if it's just being a little bit draggy and it doesn't seem to be in imminent danger of being eaten, I will let it play to the end of the track and then switch the player to stop when it gets to the end of the track, so that the sensing foil splice is exposed. And then what I would do is cut the tape, because you're going to have to cut the tape to fix this tension problem. So what I like to do is I would advance the tape until the sensing foil splice is showing, take my scissors, cut it at the sensing foil splice, and then what you're going to do is you're going to take the end of the tape that is coming from the outer reel. Whoops. The outer part of the reel. And you're going to pull on it. You're going to put your finger on the plastic part of the inner reel here to keep it from turning. And then you're going to, here, see if I can move this so you can see a little bit better. You're going to put your finger on the inner reel here to keep it from moving, and then you're going to pull with your other hand. Whoops, keeps wanting to come out there. Basically what you're going to do is you're going to pull on this piece that's coming off the outer rail, or reel. You're going to pull it, and then you may have to take and re-wrap it around, but you're going to just keep pulling on it until any gap disappears. Okay, till there's no more gap in between the tape and the plastic reel. And then you're going to take, and I like to use my splicing block, but if you don't have one, you can just try to eyeball it. But I take my splicing block, put the pieces back together like this, and then put a new sensing foil tab on it. And then pop it in, let it play, and then when it's gone through one complete play, sensing foil to sensing foil, take it back out, take it apart, and check to make sure that the repair held. And then what I would do is, if you have to repair it again, I wouldn't cut the sensing foil splice off. I would cut the tape near the sensing foil splice, and then after I was done retensioning it, I would use some splicing tape and splice and just tape the tape back together, because you don't want to keep cutting too much, because you don't want to end up cutting off, you know, a part of the tape with music on it. So now sometimes the tape tension is too tight, and when that's the case, you go through the same first few steps where you try and get the tape advanced to the sensing foil splice, cut the tape, but then instead of messing with the outer reel, with the tape on the outer reel, you're going to pull tape from the inner reel. So what you would do, let's see if I can, there we go. Welcome back. In this episode I'm going to be talking about readjusting your tape tension. As I mentioned in the tune-up to tape tune-up video, sometimes you're going to be faced with tapes where the tension is either too tight or too loose. Now if the tape is too loose, what I like to do is I advance the play tape until the sensing foil splice is showing. And then what I like to do is I will cut the tape about an inch away from the sensing foil splice. Then what you're going to do is, if the tape pack is too loose, meaning if there's ends up being a gap, like if you put your tape, hold your tape up slightly like this, and there ends up being a gap in between the plastic part of the inner reel and the play tape itself, you will need to retension it, especially if it's causing problems with playback, usually in the form of dragging. What you would need to do is, once you have cut the tape, you will be taking up the slack from the outer part of the reel. So what I do is I put my pointer finger here on the inner part of the plastic reel to hold it, keep it from moving, and then you're going to take your other hand and you're going to grab the tape that's coming from the outer part of the reel, and you're going to pull on this to take up the slack. And then sometimes what's going to happen is you're going to have a big enough gap, you're going to pull, and you're going to end up with a bunch of play tape. You know, so what you do is you're going to have to re-wrap it around the outer reel, pull on it again, you know, keep doing this, and then re-wrap it around if necessary. Keep doing this until the gap is gone, until the slack has been taken up. And then you will take your splicing block and your splicing tape, and you're going to re-splice the tape back together where you cut it. And this is where replacing the sensing foil and doing little repairs like this is where this block really comes in handy. It was one of the reasons why I started making these, was for personal use at first, because it just made the job so much easier. Now, sometimes you're going to find the tape tension is too tight. And if you can't safely, you may have to cut the tape. I typically like to try and do it near the sensing foil splice, so that way I'm not cutting it where the music is at. You know, so I don't, because it's hard for an amateur like me sometimes to get the splice just right without having a little bit of a gap in sound. So I like to try and do any splicing I have to do near the sensing foil tape, because there's no music there. So Anyway, if the tape tension is too tight, if you can, try and advance the reel to where the sensing foil is showing and then make the cut there. Sometimes that's not possible because the reel just does not want to move, and you don't want to damage it, so if that's the case, then you'll need to just cut it wherever it's at. And what you're going to want to do is you cut it, and then what you're going to do is you're going to pull tape out from the inner reel. Now, when the tape pack is too loose, we were pulling from the outer reel. If the tape is too tight, you're going to pull from the inner reel. So you're going to grasp the play tape that's coming out of the inner reel, and you're going to pull, maybe 3-4 times revolutions. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll do 4. And then, oops, okay, we'll do 5. So then you're going to want to straighten it out, and you're going to end up with a bunch of tape coming out there. Then you're going to re-splice the tape back together, and then you're going to hand turn the reel, and you may have to gently pull some more out of the middle as you're turning, but you're going to turn it to pick up all this slack so that it's rolling itself back onto the outer reel. Once that's done, put it back together, put it in the player, play it for 5-10 seconds, pull it out, make sure that it doesn't appear to be getting eaten. If it sounds okay, go ahead and put it back in, let it play. And then after it's gone through one complete play, if everything is sounding okay, take it back out, take it apart, hand turn it, make sure that it still seems to be the right tension, it's not too tight. If it starts having problems while you're playing it back, take it out, take the cartridge back apart, hand turn it, hand advance it until the splicing or the sensing foil comes out, and then redo. Sometimes you get lucky and the first time you repair it, it works fine. Other times it may take several attempts to get the tension to stay the right tension. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.